Hey, what's going on, craft beer professionals? My name is Chris Klein with Cascade Floors Inc., and we are proud members and sponsors of the CBP. Some of you know me, but for those who don't, I look forward to meeting you someday. If you run a brewery or a food production facility, you know your floors take a serious beating every single day. Well, that's where we come in. Cascade Floors has been in business for over 55 years. We bring over 200 years of combined experience to your job site every day. We never outsource labor. Our crews are full-time trained professionals. We have over 4.5 million square feet installed at over 480 breweries in 34 states and 3 countries. Those floors take a serious beating every day. Our floors are designed to handle tough conditions and withstand chemicals and hot water washdowns and serious heavy equipment use. Our floors are 100% non-prorated 5-year warranty against debonding. If you're planning a new building, expanding, or just tired of patching those crappy floors, hit me up. We'd love to work with you.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Madeline McMahon, and I am a fractional marketing strategist. Industry adjacent, I've worked in a taproom. I helped start a contract beer brand. I have positively influenced the purchase of craft beer. I currently find myself in that fractional marketing space. And whenever I can, I volunteer to show local small businesses how to better leverage AI. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. I am volunteering my time this evening to share what I know about AI. Now, quick disclaimer, if you're watching this live, if you're watching this later, everything related to AI, I always joke, is subject to change. So please check current events, most recent references. If you're watching this even 6 months later, it's very possible that some of the things in the presentation will have changed. I have been fortunate to give a presentation like this multiple times. Every single AI presentation has been different. So if you've seen me speak before, hopefully you'll still take something valuable away today. Now, I can't kick off this presentation without acknowledging that the craft beer industry has some thoughts about AI. There was definitely some feedback. And I've talked about AI in a bunch of different industries, actually. And I think the most common concern I get outside of the environmental, of course, we do have those environmental components, is the idea of the next generation of artists. What does that look like? How are we going to navigate changing jobs in a changing landscape? So I do want to acknowledge that there are negatives to the world that we're in with AI. There are social impacts, environmental impacts. That's not specifically what we're going to cover today, though. What I'd like to do is I would like to talk about AI as a tool and how we can leverage it as small businesses in a way that makes us more efficient in the space. So here's some of the feedback that I got in the Craft Beer Professionals group. So I just want to kind of call that out. You know, AI can feel really gross. What about it makes it feel gross? Some people feel like it's cheating, that it's going to make the next generation lazy. And I think both things can be true, right? It's definitely going to make some jobs less relevant, but it's also going to give us opportunities to grow as individuals, as professionals, and kind of see what opportunities come out there next. So I think that the opportunity is in understanding the tool, whether or not you leverage it, but approaching this conversation with some curiosity for me today. I also happen to see that there is a very well-loved community artist that recently posted some frustration with AI in the craft beer space. And I noticed more consumer-facing feedback in that. One comment that really stuck out to me is the idea that if you can own a brewery, then you can afford a graphic designer. And it's been my experience through multiple states and different breweries, different areas, demographics, brewery owners, that truly is not the case. I started my business because I understood that craft breweries were navigating, looking for return on investment of time, leveraging social media as a vehicle. Well, how do we figure out if any of that is working or not? How do we meet people where they are? So this is just a reminder that even as widely known as craft beer has become, there are still people discovering Untapped for the first time today. There are still people that don't understand what it takes to have a business. And there are still brewery owners that can be very savvy at their craft, but maybe aren't formally trained in things like marketing or insurance. So how can we use AI today to better streamline our operations? Sure. But what if we reframe that and think about how we can leverage AI to communicate more intentionally with our vendors? So we're going to take AI beyond the caption, beyond just the idea of write me this email. And we're actually going to talk about some applications for craft beer that I typically approach in the business world, but I think would apply to any small business owner watching this today. This was the last comment I'm going to lead you with, and this seemed to be somewhat industry adjacent. And the real standout sentence to me is, unfortunately, a quick post about bingo where I don't have to pay a designer $250 is worth it. So when people were asked about how they feel about AI in the craft beer industry, it is definitely an opinion on every side right now. So how do we navigate that? How do we empower our team to use the tool? How are we mindful about proprietary information? And how do we feel like what we're building is still not only an authentic community, but authentic content in our craft? AI supports your ideas. It doesn't replace them. I was talking to educators about AI not that long ago, and the concern about young artists came up. You know, how do we keep the next generation of artists interested and engaged and motivated when they feel like their job will be taken by AI? You can see I used AI in Canva to make this slide, making beer with AI. This gives us an opportunity to either evolve with our skill set or become teachers of what it is that AI is formulating. So what I anticipate will happen is those graphic designers that are hand drawing your beer labels are probably going to become more expensive. So then it becomes, are we going to invest in the artist, or do we need to find a way to make both ends of that spectrum work? How can we better integrate these tools, but still invest in the people that are the experts, like your artist or your lawyer or your marketing vendor, for example? So I find that AI is great for drafting, for calibration, for translating, like marketing jargon, for example. But it actually can help your voice stay human and help you better train other people on how to help you spread that brand awareness in your particular brand voice. This AI is just brewery worker. And as you can see, this job is tough. I am optimistic that there are lots of ways for brewers to onboard AI. I never imagined that it would be the brewer designing recipes, not specifically. I think automation is things that we're going to see, technological advances all over the place, but it's going to be quite a while before the actual brewer's job is taken by AI. So I took an opportunity. I'm reading a book right now called Obviously Awesome. And so far, it is obviously awesome. But a quote that I took away from it, it's about positioning. And I thought this was a really good one. While we understand that context is important, we generally fail to deliberately choose a context, because we believe the context for our product is obvious. So when you think of craft beer, when you think of your unique value proposition, maybe you assume that your audience understands your positioning. My challenge for you is, what if we have that conversation with some of our AI tools to have better self-awareness about our brand, about our offering, about our demographic? It is unrealistic to expect that you're going to have one person that's good at everything on your team, one person that is an expert at marketing and an expert at human resources and an expert in logistics for distribution, right? We've got different skill sets from different people. How do we better leverage those? And how do we get better self-awareness about our own brand? So we're going to talk about a couple of different tools today. And before we jump into the tools, I think it is important to call out the idea of AI slop, right? I'm sure many of you are familiar with the expression garbage in, garbage out. That is absolutely the case with AI as well. We need to make sure that we are directing the tool on how to best assist us so that we can get the information that we're looking for. So it's important to define components of your ask of AI. Who is AI acting as? Is this an expert, seasoned director of marketing? Is this an accountant who specializes in craft beer, right? Like giving the AI context of what role it has, telling it what tone you're trying to accomplish, right? Giving AI these context clues about what you're trying to create so you get a little bit closer to what it is you're trying to develop. Now, my suggestion in this is not that it eliminates your expert vendors, but imagine if we could take the time to generate an employee handbook. And we use AI. You know, I will never forget my very first tasting room. I was tasked with putting an employee handbook together. We didn't start with a blank Word document. We pulled from previous existing documents that we had, right? We repurposed a handbook from a previous brewery, or often you would Google an employee handbook and just onboard that. What I'm suggesting is we leverage AI tools such as ChatGPT to develop an employee handbook. And then the team building exercise is reviewing that handbook together, getting everyone together and saying line by line, this is the culture, this is what we're looking for, but also understanding it doesn't specifically stop there. Once we have that employee handbook, it's time to then submit it to our experts, to our fractional human resources, or to the lawyer that we're working with. The idea, again, is not that we've eliminated the need for their services, but maybe now we can streamline our conversations and invest 30 really intentional minutes on a topic instead of 2 hours trying to figure it out what it is we are trying to articulate. So I want to remind you that you are not asking AI to think for you. We're giving AI direction. So some examples before we jump into the demonstrations. I mentioned the idea of a banker. I recently went to a seminar where bankers sat on a panel and talked about what business owners can do to set themselves up for success in getting a line of credit or getting a bank loan from the bank that they're working with. Now, I am a self-proclaimed nerd and I love going to things like that. So I made time to be in that room. I made time to understand those different options. Very few brewery owners have time to leave work for a day, go sit in a banking seminar, listen to the panel, and then come back and put those ideas into action. So what I'm suggesting is try something like this. What if you were to ask your preferred AI tool, and it doesn't have to be specific to the name of your business, but what if you said, what should I understand as a small business owner in the fermented beverage space before approaching my banker about a line of credit with my bank? So instead of saying to AI, I need more money, what do I do? I'm thinking, let's go to AI and say, I'm considering that I need additional funding for a project like this. If I work with a bank like this, what questions should I expect to answer? What documents should I bring with me to the bank to make that experience even better when you're spending the time with them? Again, this doesn't eliminate our bankers. I did see, I won't lie to y'all, again, this might date it. I saw in the last couple of days that someone in Florida sold their home with ChatGPT in 5 days. A lot of these things are going to continue to be possible, and there are going to be crazy stories, and there's always going to be that person that takes advantage. I don't want you to get distracted with all of those bells and whistles necessarily. I want you to think about what your business needs. Think about the vendor or the expert or the person that could help solve that problem for you, and then figure out what you need to set yourself up for success in getting that accomplished. Right? So think about not just, I need more money. What do I need the money for? Do I need it right away? Is it something, like having those thoughts and iterating them with AI makes you feel more confident when you talk to your banker. It may mean one less trip because you show up with the documents you're supposed to have. Those are the conversations that I'm trying to bring into small businesses in ways that we can leverage AI beyond just the caption. Another example. So let's say that you are an incredible business owner. You took some business classes. Maybe you're not trained in marketing, but you know enough to be dangerous. Well, are you also certified in insurance? Do you understand what things you could share or what picture you could paint that may impact your premiums or what coverage you need? What if we went into AI and said, I'm concerned about my commercial insurance rate, right? Bob down the street said he's paying less than I am, but I don't really understand insurance. Now we have information that helps us better ask questions. It's not calling and saying, how do I make my insurance cheaper? It's, I want to talk about these components of my business so I understand my risk profile as pictured here. The other thing I'll call out in this screen and talking about the changes of AI and the evolution of what we're seeing and prompting and things like that. I do not work for ChatGPT. I do not work for any of the tools I'm going to show you today. I don't get affiliate codes. There are no kickbacks. I come from a place of pay it forward. So I'll talk a little bit about why these tools in a couple of minutes, but what I want to call out on this slide is if you look, you can see the BLUF, bluff, bottom line up front. When I first started using ChatGPT, it didn't have the memory recall, or it couldn't search the internet. There have been a lot of changes in the years I've been volunteering to teach people how to use AI. One of the reasons I feel comfortable and confident in this space is because I am constantly teaching it and constantly recreating these presentations that show differences. So one of the tools I'm going to show you today has fundamentally changed in the last 6 months since I started giving this presentation. ChatGPT has become very wordy. I'm getting paragraph and paragraph and paragraph, and it's just too much information. So I got a pro tip from someone, ask it to give you the bluff, the bottom line up front. And that has made a difference in the conversations I'm having with chat. But, you know, there's that reminder, things are potentially going to change, things are going to shift. So it's important to be using the tool on a regular basis. None of the things we're looking at today will ever be set it and forget it. I'm a huge fan of reviewing that employee handbook at least once a year. If we can take all of the manual time out of typing that paragraph by paragraph, and it's just the team building exercise of reviewing it, then there's better accountability. There's better understanding of expectations. I think it's really important that we have not all of these documents together, but everything about our business should be in writing. Some of the administrative time is eliminated and leveraging as AI as a tool. Normally, I would pause and ask for questions. I don't see anything in the comments. If you are watching this live, I love interactive questions. I'm a huge nerd about this. So if you need anything, wonder anything, feel free to drop it in for me. If not, I'm just going to keep going. And I promise we're getting to demonstrations. But kind of a recap on what to think about when you're thinking about AI as a tool. It's input, structure, and output. So things that you're going to put into the tool are things like Taproom happenings and events that you want to create collateral around, notes, voice memos, ways to organize your thoughts, structure creating policies and procedures, putting all of your standard operating procedures in writing. Again, this takes minutes, if not hours, out of some of those more daunting administrative tasks. Now we can have AI create the outline based on the industry, and we're just confirming that information is correct for our specific business. Output, creating posts, menus, training, emails. A huge component of what I'm going to show you guys today is the idea that not only are we responsible for making sure that these materials are available, accessible, and in writing, we are also now in a time where we can recreate that collateral for any position, for any learning style. We could take that employee handbook and those policies and procedures and maybe even convert those into a pitch for what makes our brewery different, or an argument for a business banker, right? So thinking about ways that we can take the tasks we're already doing and take some of the tedium out of them, and also make all of this information accessible and available to everyone. Automation is not required in AI. That's another thing I'm going to call out. This is very surface level conversations about AI. If you are looking to create GPTs and bots and integrations, I encourage you to keep looking for information. I also encourage you to start at least with the free resources that you can find. If you have curiosity about AI and you have a brick and mortar, as many breweries, cideries, wineries do, I encourage you to go talk to your Chamber of Commerce. go to your economic development. If the people in your community designed to keep your business successful and in the area know you have a need for an educational topic, it is very, very likely they will facilitate that. I can confirm, I'm based in Virginia, I can confirm that economic developments across the state are kind of waiting for you to tell them what they need so that they can get the funding to create those programs. So if you want additional training on this outside of just the free videos that you find, go to your economic development, go to your chamber of commerce, find the organizations in your area that are able to volunteer this information before you invest in a course. I'm a big fan of free and sharing information. We can't talk about AI without the warning. So AI is a tool that is designed to give you what you want. It is designed to make you happy. So if you tell it that you want to know that you are the King of England, it will confirm, sure thing, you are absolutely Your Highness. What would you like for breakfast? So we're going to go back to that garbage in, garbage out and reflect on that self-awareness one more time. So if we're going to give leading questions, it's going to give answers based on that context. It's important to have prompts that help you calibrate. So one of my favorite things to do if I'm creating blog content or if I'm working on long form copy, when I'm at a place where I'm happy with it, I will have AI read through it and I'll ask, what am I at risk of in this? Am I making a claim that I don't mean to make? Am I misrepresenting a product, things like that? I will have AI edit me for content vulnerabilities, for risk mitigation, kind of for that peace of mind. Something else you can do is potentially audit it and say, are these phrases and terms that seem too populated by AI? Or we can go in and say, this is my demographic. These are the areas of the people that I'm trying to reach. Update this content to reflect that demographic, but maybe take a look for any of those vulnerabilities. So we can use it as an auditing tool to kind of check ourselves before we publish. So drafting, prompting, reviewing, also a little bit of peace of mind before we press publish. But the big call out here, you need to proofread your responses. And my suggestion, if you're using AI to create your policies and procedures, your standard operating procedures, your employee handbook, I do encourage you to look at those regularly because regulations change around us. So again, none of this is set it and forget it. All of these are just tools for conversations. They don't eliminate your expert vendors, and AI will hallucinate. So please, please, please proofread. All right, so before I hop into some demonstrations, people often ask me why ChatGPT. And in March 2026, that's certainly also a hot topic. Which software are you using? The short of it, and I share this story all the time, my father is a chief technology officer. He has cybersecurity clearance and things like that. And it's been probably closer to 2 years now. I remember him telling me that he was paying for ChatGPT. And I thought to myself, okay, if my chief technology officer dad is paying for ChatGPT, I'll pay for ChatGPT. So that was my initial onboarding with it. And when I first started using it, I was finding prompts that other people had recommended from the Washington Post or the New York Times. But I quickly realized that I didn't need the prompts I was finding because I had the curiosity. So again, I try not to take that for granted. And that's what I'm hoping to pay forward through presentations like this and potentially follow-up conversations, is paying forward my curiosity because I was allowed to click buttons. So my chief technology officer dad was okay with ChatGPT. That made it okay with me. I've invested so much time and effort into it that I don't have to do the traditional prompting anymore. So multiple times this week alone, someone has asked me if I'm going to switch from ChatGPT for social or political reasons. And it is not worth the bandwidth to me to extract all of that and start fresh with a new tool. I am using a tool that streamlines my processes, makes me more efficient, makes me better at my job. And that's what I'm interested in. I personally don't have enough bandwidth to hop from AI to AI. So I've onboarded what I consider an AI stack. You may have heard of a software stack, all of the different technology in your business that you're using. I typically use 2 to 3 tools when I'm using AI. So as you can see in the image here, the ones we're going to talk about today, ChatGPT, Notebook LM, and Prompt Cowboy. Now, Prompt Cowboy is a very interesting example. So when I first started showing people Prompt Cowboy, what I liked about it is it broke out all of the components of a prompt. There was a task, there was an objective, things like that. I've noticed now that that's no longer how they break it out. I can still get what I'm looking for out of it, but it doesn't have the same breakdown. And now they have kind of a freemium component. So something that used to be entirely free now has this pop-up that says, hey, you've used 7 out of 10 calls this month, upgrade to get more. So again, the tools we're going to talk about today, I don't work for them. I don't have any affiliate code. It doesn't hurt my feelings if you never even look at these tools. But what I like about Prompt Cowboy does have that freemium. And just as you can see on the screen, you turn your lazy prompts into great ones. So when I'm starting from scratch, if it's a topic I don't know very much about, or I haven't delved into it necessarily, I'm likely to start with Prompt Cowboy. So for this example, what I typed in before we logged on is, assume I own a craft brewery in the state of Virginia, and I want to better understand how to work with my banker to get a line of credit or a business loan. So I'm going to empty it. That's my brain dump in. What I like about this tool still is that we'll give you an opportunity to improve your prompt. If you look over here on the side, there are several different things that I could update or tell it to help get closer to what it is I'm trying to accomplish. So for example, what's your current banking situation, right? It's going to guide me to giving better information so that hopefully I can get that answer I'm looking for in the first or second iteration instead of having to search multiple times. What I typically do in this space, I don't typically spend a ton of time in here. I like to take that prompt and just paste it into my next AI, but it does kind of show you what you could consider when creating your own prompt. See, it tells it you are a seasoned commercial banking advisor, right? Walk me through what I need to know. It gives key indicators that sets Chat Up or Gemini or Claude or Grok. It sets those platforms up for success to get you closer to what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to, let's generate a new chat here. Another disclaimer with this, we are logged into my personal ChatGPT. For a while when I was doing AI presentations, I was using like a throwaway account. Honestly, it's just easier for me to work in the same place. But I've been using ChatGPT so long, it actually understands when I'm giving a presentation and does not assume that I need a commercial banker necessarily. So again, I have a lot of time and hours and effort invested into ChatGPT, and it is still a very good tool for me for what I need it for. So we just put in that prompt, help set me up for success with my banker, put that into ChatGPT. And the bottom line up front, the bluff is you're not asking for money. You're asking a bank to underwrite predictable repayment from a volatile, inventory heavy business. Woo, ain't that the truth, y'all? So this is a great overview of things to consider. And maybe this is something that you print out and you talk to your accountant about, or you're talking to your partner about. You know, these are better conversation starters for you than just walking into a bank and saying, I think I need more money. What do I need to do? Right? This is a way for us to get better use of our time and maybe get some self-awareness about what would go into needing to have that bank loan. So that's an example of a way that I would use more than one AI tool. I put that prompt into Prompt Cowboy, and that's promptcowboy.ai. And then I pasted that prompt right into ChatGPT. And again, Prompt Cowboy is a freemium. I am paying $20 a month for ChatGPT at this time. So we've got some information here. I'm going to pivot a little bit to another topic because I want to show you guys another tool. But again, instead of just saying, write me a post for my social media or help me get more people in the door, it's assume that you are an expert marketing or a director of marketing and assume you are helping a brick and mortar in this city and this state, and assume that you have events like trivia or whatever it is, right? So give it some context, ask it for that feedback, and then you take that and you have a conversation with your team. So the other reminder with this is we don't own ChatGPT, and I don't know about y'all. I don't make the rules. So I can't promise you that this will be available tomorrow. Certainly not in the way that it is now. I can't promise it won't be more expensive in a couple of years. I can't promise anything about that. So it's really important to extract the information you're developing from the tool. If you've created an employee handbook, make sure that you're copying that out of ChatGPT and putting it into a document. This is not a repository. This is not your library. This is not something you are guaranteed to have forever, this ChatGPT login. So it's really important to take the ideas out and then continue with them. There are very few things we're talking about today that AI will ever explicitly just do for you. Again, this is a tool. This is a way for us to create frameworks or agendas or resources and then calibrate them with our teams and for our specific businesses. So let's assume, for example, that you did have your employee handbook populated by this. So populate an employee handbook for a brewery in Virginia. And so a practical Virginia compliant employee handbook. What I would do, and I appreciate that, I flagged attorney review required for me. So you can see where you absolutely should have a lawyer validate language. I love that. So I didn't specifically ask it to do that for me. This is something that my chat history knows I'm likely to ask for. So I appreciate that call out. But again, if you don't have that self-awareness, if you don't know that you should talk to a lawyer about certain things, AI may not explicitly tell you that. So if you're not seeing flagged for attorney review, maybe at the end of that iteration, you should ask, is this a document that should be reviewed by an attorney? Why? How long should that take? How much should that cost me, right? These are questions that we can now ask. When I think about it and the evolution of the industry or the internet and all of the different things that we have access to, I think when the internet first came out, it was like walking into a swap meet or a bazaar, and everybody at their booth was like, "Come to my website, come buy something from me," right? All of these ads and attention grabbers. AI feels like walking into a museum with the museum curator. If you have the curiosity, if you have the question, you have the guide that can take you to the answer. So no longer do we have to be in a guild to have access to information. No longer do we have to have a degree in marketing to understand the fundamentals of marketing. We just need to have some awareness in what we need and how to find it and how it's going to serve our business, that type of thing. So we're going to take this sample brewery handbook, I'm not going to do anything else with it. I'm just going to take it as is, and I am going to copy it into my next favorite tool. Okay, so we're going to copy this and we're going to go into Notebook LM. Some of the things in Notebook LM can take a few minutes, so I did get this started for myself. If you are not familiar, Notebook LM is a Google-based tool, and with that, I am optimistic that it will remain free, or at least freemium for the time being, because Google Workspace really has come a long way. I am paying for Google Workspace, so you can see I have Pro up here. It's been my experience that you should still have access to most of these studio components on the free version. You just may not have as much, but we're going to talk through why this tool is so incredible today. So one of the things I like about Notebook LM is it has the ability to only consider what you tell it to. So most AI tools, most LLMs are pulling from all resources, Reddit, the internet, all of these different places. And you could be at risk of unconscious bias or conscious bias, frankly, if you think about Reddit. But what I like about Notebook LM is it gives you the opportunity to kind of safeguard some of those ideas and ask questions in an insulated space. So you could upload specific files. I actually learned about this tool at a conference for educators. When Heather presented this at that specific conference, the way that she showed it to us is, imagine having your lesson plan and uploading it because you know your lesson plan is good to go. Everything looks neat and clean and tidy, but you upload your lesson plan into Notebook LM, and then students are able to recreate it into their preferred learning method. So this studio gives an opportunity for a podcast, a slideshow, video. There are lots of different ways that we can now convert the approved copy, the approved handbook, the approved SOP, the approved policy and procedure, and then provide it to our staff and to our coworkers in a way that they can then discern and learn in their preferred learning method. And I just think there's something really powerful about that. And I'm really excited about this tool as an education opportunity. So within Notebook LM, you can add specific sources. You can have it search the web, but I typically just give it specific sources. So this got me started earlier. This was looking for funding in a craft beer space. I'm going to add the copied text from what we just did, that employee handbook, and I'm going to insert that in there. So while it's reading, so now it immediately calibrates. So now it's got two components of pasted text, and I've got the Brewmaster's blueprint for securing bank financing. Now, if we look here earlier, I mentioned that you can convert this information in a couple of different tools. My favorite example of how I've seen this work, I was working with an intern from a different country, and they were attending a networking event without me and feeling kind of nervous. And so I used AI to create a sample conversation. And then I put that conversation into Notebook LM, and I turned it into an audio overview. She was able to listen to that audio overview on the way to her networking event as if it were a conversation, and told me later that she walked in with full confidence because she had an example of what to expect. She'd listened to sample conversations and she felt prepared. So whether it's a new salesperson working for you or a new employee that wants to work in a different department, imagine not having to create every single piece of material. What if we could give them the approved documents and then the autonomy to recreate information in their preferred learning method? So this is the slideshow that it made for me. So this can take a minute or two. That's why I populated this before the presentation started, because I didn't want you guys to just watch wheels spinning. This is all generated by AI. Now, is this going to steal someone's job? I don't think it is in the brewery, guys. I think that this is going to allow your tasting room manager, your ops manager, people on your team that are tasked with creating these materials. I think it's going to save them hours. I think it's going to make people excited about making training materials because they don't have to go through typing every single word by word. It also creates really beautiful infographics. So again, the ability to quickly regurgitate the information into different visuals, audios, quizzes. So let's go back to that employee handbook example. What if we have the employee review the handbook in their preferred style, and then they take a quiz in this space, and that's how you know that they've read the handbook. This is also, I think, an opportunity. Maybe we extract this infographic and that's going into our presentation for our banker, right? This does not eliminate the need for a graphic designer, but this can save you hundreds of dollars and help you get to a place where you can afford the graphic designer for the things that make the most sense, that you want to invest in your graphic designer for. So I'm going to take, I need to go to this one. All right. So I'm going to, now I just have the brewery handbook selected, and I'm going to turn that into some flashcards. And then I'm also going to turn that into a quiz. And you can see here, it takes just a minute. While those are generating, I want to show you this tool has made advances in the last 6 months. So before, where I would just press a button, now I have significantly more options to choose from. So let's say that your team put together the plan for an incredible event and you want to get a press release for it. Instead of just going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, can you write me a press release? Imagine giving Notebook LM the good stuff, all of the juicy details, and have it create a briefing doc or have it create a blog post, and then asking, is this something that would be picked up by the local press? If so, why or why not? We have the ability to have that curiosity. Now, I can't promise you that'll mean that the press release gets picked up, but that's a conversation starter. Maybe the reporter that receives that press release doesn't publish that article, but now they know that you're there. Now they're curious about what philanthropic events you're having. Maybe that's someone you invite to your next event. So these are tools to help things feel more accessible and to document the process more intentionally. So let's see the brewery flashcards that it came up for me. So this is the employee handbook in theory. And look at that. So it's got questions and answers from the handbook. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty fun. And then the quiz ultimately. So the idea would be you have them look through the material that you created, that you approved. It's not something that an AI robot just made for you. These are documents that you intentionally put together, and then you give your staff the autonomy to recreate it in those different ways. Again, audio, slideshow, video, mind map. This is an incredible free tool that I'm obviously very, very excited about. So I found myself in the last several months saying often, what I like about AI is that it levels the playing field. It can eliminate the barrier of entry and provide access to anyone with the curiosity for it. I have a friend who just took an AI ethics course that reminded me that there are over 7 billion people in the world that don't even know these tools exist. So I'm trying not to say that it specifically levels the playing field. When you think about it in that context, that doesn't really feel accurate. What I'm suggesting to small business owners, to fermented beverage business owners, is that now there's a tool that will help us organize our thoughts, that will help us be accountable and keep other people accountable. It will take some of the mundane office work off of our plate. But this still isn't going to enforce that culture. This is still not going to enforce the standards. We still need to extract this information and implement it. We still need to train our team on the human components. And I think it's really important to understand the mechanics. If you don't understand what an employee handbook should have in it, then how will you know if this is correct or not? Right? So we also need to think about things that we aren't formally trained in and imagine iterating some of those things with AI as a starting point. I have no experience learning on this topic, but I'm about to invest in a vendor in this space. What questions should they ask me? How long should onboarding take? How much should that cost me? How long before I see return on investment? These are all things that we can talk about with AI now. So when we're talking to our vendor, we can bypass that jargon. I've said multiple times that one of the heartbreaking things about starting my own marketing business and being a solopreneur is seeing that marketing vendors often lie. And I remind people, I don't think it's malicious intent. It's not like they're all out to get you. It's an inability to manage expectations. If you have no experience in the beer industry and you have no experience with a brick and mortar food and beverage component, but you're a social media expert, is that the best vendor for you to hire? Too many brewery owners have talked about vendors not understanding their voice or not understanding their demographic or their message. Well, do you understand your demographic and your message? Are you absolutely certain on the clarity in your mission statement and your values? We don't have to worry about whether or not we're getting it right if we can think about the structure of the business and what we want to see from our employees and from our customers. Because if we don't know what we're looking for, no one else will understand how to find us. I think that AI helps level that playing field. If you want your business to grow, if you want your business to improve, if you want your employees to get along differently, if you want vendors to work with you differently, this is an opportunity to go and ask Chat about that. I think a big difference between the Google it of 5 years ago and the Ask Chat is now there is the ability to give more context. I don't know many people that were formally taught to Google, for example, but we're putting a lot of effort into showing people how to prompt. So there's opportunity there. If you can be curious about it, you can find the information that you're looking for within AI. I have a few minutes left. I have one more tool that I wasn't necessarily going to show, but since I have the time, I am going to show you all another advancement I'm seeing in AI is with Canva. So I've been a Canva user for just easily longer, or just as long, if not longer, than ChatGPT. And I've just really started leveraging Canva AI over here. I do pay, I think it's like $120 a year, but I am not a graphic designer by trade. And I have a brother that's an expert in graphic design. I have the utmost respect for people in that position, but I create presentations so often that I don't have the luxury, unfortunately, of investing in a graphic designer that can make these things for me. So I showed you that Notebook LM presentation. That's been really helpful, but I noticed they're really wordy. So the other tool I'm going to show you all, I'm going to go in here and say, Canva AI turned this into a presentation, and I just gave it some of the information from that ChatGPT just because I want to show you all an example. Now, am I saying that this is going to be your social media content? No, not specifically. But if you would like to create a presentation for your staff, it went from minutes of time and all of those things into being able to work with an AI tool that can get stuff started for you. So my argument for this, again, is we are in a place where we need to have all of our policies and procedures in writing, accessible to everyone on the staff. We need to have every standard operating procedure in writing, accessible to the staff, not just living in our heads. Let's live in a world, friends, where we go on vacation, where we get promoted, right? Nothing should live in heads anymore. We should be putting things on paper intentionally. And now I think there's no excuse because we don't have that same time suck, right? So if you're taking the time to put the information together, now we can make it graphically more interesting significantly faster. So maybe it hasn't been that your team doesn't really appreciate the policies and procedure. Maybe they just don't really understand how the enforcements work or where the accountability is. Now we can take those thoughts and we can put it into presentations and call the meeting, have the meeting with our staff, talk to people about it. So here's some AI examples of a presentation, what you should have your lawyer review. And that's just from that paragraph that I gave it. So is this done? No. Does this save me a lot of time? Yeah, because I can go in here and I can select my brand kit, right? And I can apply that to all the pages. And then I've got a presentation in significantly less time. So I am optimistic that this was hopefully inspirational for you all. Again, anybody watching, I love talking about this kind of stuff. So questions, concerns, comments, complaints, anything of any nature. My email address is madeline@beerpaysthebills.com. I joke beer pays the bills-ish. I'm very active on social media. And again, I volunteer my time in this space because I think it's really important that we talk about it. Tell everyone what you learned today. Right? None of this is a secret. None of this is proprietary. Share the information with your friends. Keep reading the articles. Keep being curious about these things and know that all of this is potentially subject to change. So it is good to stay up to date on current events, but we can't expect that we're up to date on every current event for every single thing. So how can we use AI to make some part of our jobs a little bit easier? Maybe it's AI scraping for regulations. Maybe it's AI writing the handbook so that you have more time with your staff, this is my shout out to you. Think about it, consider the opportunities, and lean into the process. Your competitors are absolutely using it. And again, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So make sure you're extracting all of your good stuff from AI. Make sure you're sharing all the good things with your team. Consider using it to get better rates with your insurance, better conversations with your bankers. Have it look at your vendor proposals to help you better understand what to expect. But remember that ultimately, all the things we talked about today, AI is not going to just do them for you, and you cannot set it and forget it. So empower your team with everything in writing, encourage them to recreate that information in a way that resonates with them. So they're not just knowing what's on tap. They understand the beer flavor profile. They understand how to pair it. They understand the different components of the story because you've given them access to that information and you've empowered them to be creative with how they support the brand and the business. Thank you again for your time. I know this is kind of a hot topic. Everything's subject to change. We kept it really high level and we kept it primarily positive. But my hope is that I left you with some action items on ways that you can streamline the conversations with the people in your organization, because it will make you more money, right? Having all of these things in writing ultimately will make you more money. So Madeline McMahon, Madeline at beerpaysthebills.com. Thank you so much to Craft Beer Professionals, to Amanda and Andrew. You guys continue to put together resources and make information accessible and available to everyone. So thank you for leading the way in that charge. All right, y'all, this has been wonderful. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I hope you have a great night. Cheers.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this session, we'd love to see you in real life. We host in-person workshops across the country for craft beer professionals just like you that are held in some of the most exciting beer destinations around. These immersive events are designed to help you grow and connect with others. You'll meet peers from across the country and leave with actionable strategies for success. Connection has never been more important, and you can learn more at cbpconnects.com. Cheers. See you there.